The festival that I chose to do for my 5 themes of geography project is Dia de los Muertos. And most people would probably think that they have no idea what that is. It's another language. They've never heard of this festivity before. But actually, more people probably know what it is than they actually think that they do. And the reason for that is when we translate Dia de los Muertos from Spanish to English, that actually means Day of the Dead. So now people are like, oh yeah, I've definitely heard of that, especially if you've taken Spanish classes in high school. It is something that you learn about, especially when the dates that are celebrated for Day of the Dead roll around. And this holiday is celebrated by the people of Mexico, and the purpose of this event is to remember the deceased and the people that have passed on. It is an internationally known holiday, although not everybody in the world celebrates it. For example, the people in the United States, we celebrate Thanksgiving, and that's because the Pilgrims came to America, and we celebrate that because it's significant to us, but people in France aren't going to celebrate Thanksgiving. So that just goes to show that it is a part of their culture, their beliefs, so that's why they celebrate that. And not only is this holiday or festival, whatever you prefer, celebrated in Mexico where it originally had started, where it originated, it's also celebrated in Spain, Guatemala, Brazil, and also the Mexican American states. However, it doesn't really matter where you live or where you reside. That has nothing to do with it. If you're the Mexican heritage and you moved away, you can celebrate it no matter where you are. For example, if somebody came to Kentucky and that's their belief, they can celebrate that here. This holiday is known basically worldwide, but only certain cultures hold the festival. For example, Mexico. Many people gather and they're in the streets dancing around, having a good time. It is just a huge gathering. And it is typically a 2-day celebration. However, it can be celebrated as a 3-day festival, but it just depends on your beliefs. Okay, before I talk more about what Day of the Dead is, I just want to talk about some assumptions that people make. And for some reason, when people hear Day of the Dead, they think that it's a scary festival. Day of the Dead does sound, the words sound scary, but actually it's the exact opposite. This festivity is to focus on the positives, believe it or not, the happy times, the good times of these people that have passed on, and celebrate life. And also some people tie it in with Halloween, I guess because they think Day of the Dead, that sounds spooky. Halloween is a spooky holiday, so people think maybe they're the same holiday or they're the same thing, which actually they are 2 totally different things. And whether people believe that this is a 2 or 3-day celebration, the main focus of this holiday is to celebrate life rather than death. And they do this in memory of the loved one to remember the good times and the good experiences in life. Like the experiences that this person may have experienced by themselves, or the experiences that they shared with their loved ones. Just the positive things about this person in their life. And a little bit more about what Day of the Dead is. It is typically celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. However, in some beliefs, it's celebrated on October 31st. And that's probably another reason why people assume maybe it's associated with Halloween, but they still have nothing to do anything with each other. They share the same date. And the reason for celebrating on November 1st and 2nd is because November 1st is considered to be All Saints Day, and November 1st is All Souls Day. And the Day of the Dead was actually celebrated at the end of summer during the 16th century. However, it was then changed to October 31st, whether you believe it's 3 days or 2 days, November 1st and November 2nd. This festivity was dated back to people such as the Aztecs, and I had no idea that this festival had been around for that long. So we obviously know that it's been around for quite some time now. And as I mentioned earlier, it was celebrated at the end of summer. And to be more specific about that, it was celebrated in August, which is the 8th month of the Aztec calendar. And unlike today, it being celebrated 2 or sometimes 3 days, it was celebrated for the entire month of August. It was a month-long celebration. So that's a big difference between now and then. And here's a picture, and it's just to show a couple that's dressed up to celebrate. And you just see how extravagant their clothes are, how extravagant their face paint is. You kind of get a vibe of what it's like and what it's like to be there to celebrate. And just like any festival, festivity, holiday, there are traditions, and some traditions for Day of the Dead. There's one very popular tradition that the people celebrating do, and that is them wearing a face mask, which resemble either a skeleton head or a skull. And the mask is said to help the wearer get in touch with their darker side. And not only is a face mask something they wear, they paint their faces as well. And they paint it to look like a skeleton face, a skull. And this is also popular because it has a positive meaning, and it's to help overcome the fear of death, and also to act recklessly and get away with it unlike any other time, which that does not sound very positive, but to them, they believe that it is. And here's a couple pictures of some of the masks that they wear. And when you think they wear a mask of a skeleton head, you would think that it would be scary, but they're actually very, very pretty colors, bright colors, very detailed. They're actually very beautiful pieces of art. And here is some face painting, and it just goes to show how different they can be. Very intricate details for these. Takes a lot of time, I would assume, to paint your face up like this, but very pretty. And another tradition that they do is they create an altar in memory of the loved one. And what they do is they set up a table and they leave ofrendas, which is an offering. That's what it means in English. An offering on the table. And many times these offerings include flowers, ceramic skulls, or it could even be a personal item of the loved one. And they leave it on the table. And the purpose of this is to encourage the souls to come and visit the living people. And I did not know that. I didn't know that's what the purpose of an altar was for. And here is a picture of an altar with all kinds of ofrendas on it. And it just goes around and it shows you what all is set there. Like there's the flores right there. And it explains what it does. There over here it says plato con sal, and that means a plate of salt. And that, it says it's for purification. So it's cool just to look at this and see what all people put on these tables for ofrendas and see what the significance of each item may be. And here's a couple pictures of some altars. You can see the pictures of the loved ones, many flowers, lots of items. And as I just mentioned, there was lots of flowers at the altars, and that's a very popular tradition as well. That flower is called a Mexican marigold, and they're seen everywhere around this time because they're believed to bring the souls of the deceased back to the living world. Also, calacas are placed everywhere to exemplify celebration of death rather than mourning. And there are many parades held which people dress in bright colors and wear their mask and dance around to celebrate. And this is an example of a calacas. This is obviously female, but I've seen some that are really cool. They're dressed usually like bright colors. I've seen one playing the guitar. Some are dancing. They're just having a good time and showing positivity. And here is a parade that was being held for Day of the Dead. See, they have all kinds of people, a big float, people dancing around behind the float. And food and drink plays a very important role too. A very popular dish is called pan de muerto. And this is always made for Day of the Dead. And pan de muerto translates to bread of dead. But in English, we would call it dead bread. And the bread is usually in the shape of a skull or bones and is topped with sugar. Another popular food is tamales, which are also eaten year-round. But tamales are a popular dish eaten because it shows the length that the living are willing to go to honor the dead. And at first I was like, I don't understand how that shows the lengths that they'll go to. But as I read more about it, it said that tamales are very difficult to make and very time consuming. So that's why it shows the lengths that the living are willing to go to, because they put all this time and effort into making this dish. And the most popular Day of the Dead drink is called atole, and it's a thick, hot, corn-based drink made from maize, used to warmthen the soul, and it's to give the soul energy. And not only is atole a necessary drink, but liquors are set out at altars as well. And there's always a glass of water, and that's there to replenish the soul due to it being tired from the journey here. And one last item made is a dark brown sauce called mole that is made most often to put on chicken. And this sauce is made from chocolate, tomatoes, and many different spices. So I'm not sure how good that would be with chocolate and tomatoes, but... And on the left, that's a picture of atole in a glass, and on the right, those are some tamales. More traditions continued. Many people take the presence of ofrendas very seriously. As said earlier, it could be flowers or it could be ceramic skulls. If soccer was important to the person who had passed, something like a soccer ball or a soccer t-shirt could have been placed there as well, since it was something that's what they enjoyed. And also, another popular tradition is making sugar skulls, and that's a very cool tradition that they do. And when people see them, they usually recognize it, and they're like, oh, that's for Day of the Dead. And most often the sugar skulls are placed on altars of the young children. And those are some sugar skulls. Some facts about Day of the Dead. These festivities usually take place around the houses of the people celebrating, and sometimes at the graves of the dead. And also, graves are decorated with all kinds of decor at this time, and they also like to do grave cleanings as well. And before I relate this to the 5 themes of geography, I just want to talk about one of my experiences. My Spanish teacher, she was very passionate about what she did, and she has been to Mexico quite a few times, and she's actually been down there and celebrated Day of the Dead with some of the people. And she came back and told us the story, and it was just amazing how positive that these people are and how happy they are at such a sad time, because they look at it differently than we do. And she also brought back some of the traditions that they do. As I'd said, the food and drink. What we did is we would come into class when Day of the Dead would roll around, November 1st, 2nd, on Halloween. We would shut the lights off so it'd be dark, and we'd listen to music, and we would color a mask, and we would cut it out and we would wear it. And she, a lot of the times, would make the dead bread. She didn't every year. I had 3 years of Spanish, and she did it a couple times. And she also made atole, and that's the corn-based drink, and it wasn't very good, but it was just really cool to experience that, so I could get a feel of what it was like for them to experience it. I know it was nothing like what they experience, but I just kind of got a feel for it, and I really enjoyed that. It was a really cool experience. But how does this relate to the 5 themes of geography? Well, this could tie back to a few of the 5 themes, but mostly it ties back in with place. And out of the 2 categories of place, it mostly fits with human characteristics. And the other category is physical characteristics, and that's more about the physical aspects of a place. But the human characteristics, this is the cultural features of a place. And this can include things such as religious practices all the way to common foods. Also included are the livelihood and even the folklore of these places. And why is it referred to as, why would I relate it to human characteristics of place? And that's because this Mexican holiday is purely cultural. It can be tied in with religion, because this is how they believe the souls of their loved ones can be remembered and taken care of and visited with. And this is completely different to many in the U.S. And as mentioned earlier, a toll is a drink that they set at the altar in order to warmthen the soul and guide the soul on its journey. And as a Christian, I was raised to believe that once we pass on, our souls go to heaven with God, and God takes care of us. However, they believe when people pass on, no matter what their religion is, they believe that their souls can come back and they can celebrate with them on Day of the Dead. Another reason is not only is it tied in with religion, it also can be tied in with food. And food is a part of their culture. For example, the pan de muertos and the atoll. Here in Kentucky, those are two things that we don't normally eat, and same goes for California. That's not a typical dish or drink that is eaten or made there. So that just goes to show that their culture and what their food is like is completely different than what it is here in Kentucky or California, or no matter where you are in the United States. And I can tie this also into livelihood. And as a part of the Mexican heritage, it is a necessity to celebrate this holiday. They take it very seriously. It's very important to them. And it just goes to show respect to those that have passed. And not only that, but it gives them a chance to celebrate the positive things in life, such as good times experienced with them or the memories that have been made with them. And to conclude all of this, as I'd mentioned, the human characteristics of a place is mainly all about culture. It is the religion, the food, the people, their way of life, and that is what Day of the Dead is all about. And this just goes to show how cultures are so diverse and differ from each other. And here are some pictures of Day of the Dead celebrations. On the right, there are two ladies and they are dancing. On the left, there's all kinds of people just gathered with decorations and having a good time. And here are my citations. Thank you.